Hey, future LPTs. I am teacher Jerika, and this is our BLEPT or Board Licensure Exam for Professional Teachers Review 2025 series. So, in this project, we will be walking you through different topics to help you review smarter and prepare better. I will be covering stylistics and discourse analysis. So sit back, take notes, and let's get you one step closer to that license. So in this, I will be preparing 10 sample questions with explanations and a bit of a bit of techniques on how you can easily find the answers just on the questions alone. Okay, let's begin. Okay, so let's begin. So before I reveal the answer, I will be giving you 10 seconds to answer on your own. So for after each question, let's see how well you do. Alright, so let's begin with question number 1. The pen is mightier than the sword. Which of the following poetic devices can be concluded based on the given sentence? So the choices are A. Parallelism, B. Oxymoron, C. Metonymy, and D. Onomatopoeia. So your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, so let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer is C, metonymy. So the word pen here refers to writing, and the sword refers to violence. So these words were replaced to the words that were closely related. So in terms of writing, that is the pen, and violence, the sword. So let's try to look at the choices through um, a rule of elimination. So we'll be removing what is not likely the answer. So D, the onomatopoeia, of course, if you still remember, it is the act of creating or using words that include sounds that are similar to the noises the words refer to. So it's the noises being um, described or created into words like ring ring, like that. For oxymoron, we know that it's not that either because oxymoron uh, is like a combination of contradictory words with especially with opposing meanings like old news, love hate, um, deafening silence, or organized chaos. So oxymoron and onomatopoeia are out. And lastly, parallelism. So parallelism is also not the answer because uh, this is both a structure and a figure of speech. So in here, we use similar grammatical structures for related words, phrases, or clauses in a sentence or paragraph. So we say, I like walking, biking, and jogging. So uh, these three words, walking, biking, and jogging, are parallel because they are in a present tense. These three are in the present tense forms and are parallel to each other. So it creates balance and emphasis by emphasizing the equal importance of elements. So we list these present tenses of verbs. Okay, let's move on to number 2. So for the question number 2, we have see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Which of the following poetic devices can be inferred from the given statement? So the choices are A, anaphora, B, epiphora, C, alliteration, and D, assonance. Okay, your 10 seconds starts now. All right. So let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so the correct answer is B, epiphora. So an epiphora is a phrase that is repeated at the end of successive clauses, which creates emphasis on the words that were repeated. So in this case, it's the phrase no evil. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So let's look at the other choices as well for another um, rule of elimination. So for the anaphora, it is the repetition of a word or phrase at the beginning of successive clauses or sentences. So unlike epiphora, anaphora deals with a repetition of phrases at the beginning. So for example, every day, every night, in every way, I am getting better and better. So the words that were repeated were every. So every day, every night, in every way. All right. How about letter C, alliteration? So an alliteration is the repetition of the initial consonant sounds in closely connected words. So it's the consonant sounds at the beginning of a word. So, for example, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. So the repeated consonant is letter P. And then lastly, assonance. So assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds within nearby words, particularly in stressed syllables. So for example, the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. So the vowel sounds that were repeated is A. So rain, Spain, stays mainly in the plain. So A. All right. So the answer here is epiphora because it repeats the clauses. There is a repetition at the end of each successive clause. Okay, let's move on to number three. Okay, now let's go ahead and try question number three. Which literary device is present in the statement, "Work on, my medicine, work, thus credulous fools are caught" by William Shakespeare? A. Apostrophe, B. Climax, C. Charactonym, or D. Personification. So your 10 seconds starts now. All right, let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer is A, apostrophe. So an apostrophe is where the speaker is addressing an inanimate object, in this case the medicine, as if it were present and capable of understanding. So you're calling out to an absent person, an abstract idea, or an inanimate object as if it was alive. So they are speaking directly to the medicine. So let's look at the other choices as well. So, climax, this refers to the most intense, exciting, or important point in a narrative or argument. So, it's also the arrangement of ideas in increasing order of importance or intensity. So, for example, I came, I saw, I conquered. Right, so there's a build-up of importance in this sentence. So I came, I saw, I conquered. So let's have also letter C, charactonym. So a charactonym is a name given to a character that reflects their personality, traits, or role in the story. Or so often these names are symbolic or descriptive. So, for example, Snow White, her name reflects her pure and fair nature. So, the last one is personification. Personification, of course, is a figure of speech in which non human objects are given human characteristics or actions. So, for example, The wind whispered through the trees. Of course, we know the wind is not capable of whispering or doing any action, but here we're giving it some kind of human characteristics, which is the ability to whisper or to speak. All right, so for this question, the answer is letter A, apostrophe, because the character here is speaking directly to the medicine as if it were alive. All right, let's have number 4. Number 4, which literary device is present in the statement, the man across the street finally kicked the bucket, instead of saying, the man passed away? So we have our choices: A, irony; B, euphemism; C, dysphemism; or D, hypophora. Your 10 seconds starts now. All right, let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so the answer is C, dysphemism, the opposite of euphemism, where the speaker uses blunt and informal remarks instead of a polite one. So, as given in the sentence, instead of saying the man passed away, the speaker says the man across the street finally kicked the bucket, which is much more informal than the one said before. So, let's look at the other examples as well. I mean, choices. So, A, irony. Irony is when there is a contrast between expectation and reality. So, for example, saying, what a beautiful day during a storm. Or there's also um, a talented painter who is allergic to paint. So, that is both ironic. So, B, let's have euphemism. Euphemism is the opposite of dysphemism, or the other way around. So, euphemism uses a mild or polite expression instead of a harsh or more direct one, like the example on question number 4. So, instead of saying died, we say passed away. And letter D, hypophora. Hypophora is a rhetorical device where the speaker asks a question and immediately answers it. So, it's rhetoric, just like when you ask a question and it's not meant to be answered. But in this case, hypophora, you as the speaker answer it. So you ask a question: why should we care about climate change? Because our future depends on it. So the speaker itself, himself or herself, answers the question directly. So the answer for number 4 is dysphemism because it uses the phrase kick the bucket instead of passed away. Okay. Okay, now let's have number 5. She's currently between jobs but staying optimistic. What does the term between jobs mean in the given statement? Okay, so it's a case of vocabulary. So between jobs. So it has something to do with employment. But for now, I'll give you 10 seconds to answer it on your own. Okay, let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so the answer is B, unemployed. So the phrase has something to do with a job. So between jobs, and among the choices, we have unemployed or unwanted, undervalued, and diminished. So letter B, unemployed, has something to do with an employment status. So the other choices have something to do with value, not about jobs. So undervalued, undiminished, unwanted. They are similar to terms, so The only word that is um, a bit different is letter B, which is about an employment status and not something about value. Okay, let's move on to number 6. We need to downsize the company due to budget cuts. What does the term downsize mean in the given statement above? So, letter A, promote employees, B, hire employees, C, lay off employees, or D, release products. So, I'll be giving you another 10 seconds. And your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer is C, lay off employees. So the other option seems a bit positive for the term downsize. It is lessening the scale of operations. So we need to downsize the company due to budget cuts. So does that mean promote employees if you need to downsize? Does it mean to hire employees? Of course not. Does it mean to release products? Of course not, because of budget cuts, right? So we need to lessen something in scale. So it's letter C, lay off employees. Okay, now we're on to question number 7. A linguist checks the legitimacy and originality of a text. Which of the following disciplines of stylistics is referred to by the given statement? So, letter A, literary stylistics, B, interpretative stylistics, C, evaluative stylistics, or D, corpus stylistics. Okay, your 10 seconds starts now. Okay, let us see if your answer is correct. Okay, so the answer is letter C, evaluative stylistics. So this involves judging and comparing the quality of different writing styles. So we can often see this in comparing two original texts with paraphrased or translated versions and see which has um, attained or kept the original tone and meaning of the original work. So we look at the legitimacy and the originality of a text. So let's look at the other choices as well. So literary stylistics, this involves analyzing the language and style used in literary texts like poetry, prose, drama to understand how meaning is created. So it combines linguistics with literary analysis. So in here we could see how studying William Shakespeare, he uses metaphors and iambic pentameter, like the Shakespearean sonnets, in his plays to convey emotion and rhythm. And letter B, interpretative stylistics. It is concerned with explaining how language choices contribute to the interpretation of meaning in a text. So, for example, we explain how the repeated use of dark imagery in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven contributes to the feeling of despair. And lastly, corpus stylistics. This uses tools to analyze large collections of words or texts or the corpora to identify patterns such as word frequency, collocations, or stylistic trends. So sometimes maybe they use softwares to analyze how often Jane Austen uses certain adjectives to describe her main characters across different novels. All right, so the answer here is evaluative stylistics because it's involved with judging or comparing the effectiveness and quality of different writing styles. So let's check. Let's move on to question Question number 8. So it criticizes how linguistic foundations work to form a meaning. Which of the following disciplines of stylistics is referred to in the statement? So the choices are A. Literary stylistics, B. Interpretative stylistics, C. Evaluative stylistics, and D. Corpus stylistics. So we've already defined each of these choices. So which one was involved with how um, it criticizes linguistic foundations to form a meaning? Okay. Okay, let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer is B, interpretative stylistics. So it focuses on how meaning is formed through linguistic choices. So it's so the fact that the question involves criticizing how meaning is formed, you know, we could confuse this with literary stylistics, which also involves analyzing language and style used to understand how meaning is created. But when it comes to linguistic foundations, um, this is on the grounds of interpretative stylistics. The language choices contribute to the interpretation of meaning. So that is interpretative stylistics. So it's not literary stylistics, which involves analyzing the language and style, but the language choices how it contributed to the meaning, to the meaning. So it's also not evaluative stylistics, which compares styles, and not corpus stylistics, which doesn't necessarily need a large collection of text to identify patterns. Okay, now we are down to question number 9. Okay, what literary device was used in the excerpt from 1984 by George Orwell? War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. So the choices are A. Paradox, B. Metaphor, and C. Oxymoron, and D. Irony. Okay, your 10 seconds starts now. All right, let's see if your answer is correct. Okay, so the answer here is A. Paradox. So these are opposing words which are placed together that juxtaposes each other. So if you look at the choices, we also have oxymoron. Now, this oxymoron also uses opposing words placed together. But what is the difference between paradox and oxymoron? So to put a clear distinction between them, paradox is explained in a full sentence, in a full thought. But in oxymoron, it's just perhaps a word or a phrase. In the sentence, war is peace, that is a complete thought. So that is a paradox. But if we turn that into an oxymoron, that becomes peaceful war. All right. So it's now like a phrase, or yeah, it's like a phrase now, unlike um, a paradox, which is expressed in a full sentence. So let's look at the other choices as well. So B, metaphor. So a metaphor is it is a figures of speech that uses a comparison between two unlikely things, explaining how they share a similar quality. So, she is the apple of my eye. So that is a metaphor. And letter D, we also explained that in the earlier cases of the questions. So an irony explains the intended meaning is opposite to the literal meaning. So, like saying, what a lovely weather during a storm. So, the answer for question number 9 is a paradox. Right. So, after removing all the unlikely answers, we are left with paradox. Now we're down to the last question. Number 10. What literary device was used in the excerpt from The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger? It always smelled like it was raining outside, even if it wasn't. So the choices are A. Personification, B. Imagery, C. Simile, and D. Metaphor. Alright, so it always smelled like it was raining. Okay, I'll give you 10 seconds to think about your answer and then we'll discuss. Your time starts now. Okay, so let's see if your answer is correct. So the answer is B, imagery. So it employed one of the senses, which is the sense of smell, to form an image in the reader's mind. So we don't really directly smell this rain that is described in the sentence. But using imagery, we are painted an image in our minds. So letter B is the answer. But let's look at the other choices as well. So A is personification. If we look back, personification pertains to how inanimate objects are given human characteristics or qualities. Maybe if we turn this sentence into a personification, it would be like the rain is um is crying. The rain is crying, or the cloud is crying rain or tears, something like that. And for the other choices, simile, it also uses a comparison with the words like or as. So she is like sunshine after the rain, like that. So that is the use of simile and also metaphor. It's also a direct comparison, like she is the apple of my eye. All right. Thank you for joining me today in this BLEPT or Board Licensure Exam Review for Professional Teachers 2025 series. See you. Thank you for listening in and goodbye.